Hello Internet, and welcome back to another update of the Big Red build. Let's jump right into this jigsaw puzzle of parts. Shiny bits on the work table are always such a great motivation to get moving. But unlike traditional assembly lines where guys on the shop floor put a machine together in a matter of minutes, there's a lot more that goes in when assembling older machines like this. Just like them, we stick the engine in the frame in under 30 seconds. And then that's where things For one, all the frame lugs need to be cleaned up before their bolts can find their way through. It would have been easier if I just stuck the right size tab through it, but I don't have one and I'm definitely not throwing some money just for these two bolts. The ATC has a swing arm that works on tapered bearings. Copious amounts of waterproof assembly grease. I use Maxima, which is available at Motor Usher, and no, they don't give me any freebies. Bolts that go through the frame need to thread in easily so the swing arm can be adjusted, centered and then torqued. And to do that it takes a bit of elbow grease and a lot of back and forth. The assembly on the Big Red is pretty standard. It's a lot like any other motorcycle, so I'm not going to spend time talking about it. But instead I'm going to focus on how Honda took painstaking efforts to design, engineer and build what started off as a simple, fun vehicle for dealers to sell in their winter months, and turned it into this monster with some rather serious focus and extreme capabilities. All of this is pretty evident in just the drivetrain here. This 87 Big Red is the final evolution of this thing, and has pretty much every single change incorporated into it. If you've ever seen those pictures of the Big Reds in the bog, it's because the thing was actually built to go there. I've been working on a large number of shafts in the last decade, and if there's one thing I've come to realize, it's that it's a part of the motorcycle that's still like new, from factory or never opened, given no attention. And that doesn't mean that they're always in great shape. It just means that the owner got shafted at his last big service. Shafts and final drives need some loving too, and most people shy away from this. Some say it's a black art, some people say parts aren't available, and some just don't know that it's there. This cool looking gear system at the end of the shaft that needs some attention. The Big Red was spec'd for backlash as well as checked for correct mating of the ring and pinion gear, a process you have to do each time you change the bearings in a final drive. I'm going to explain the process of shimming very briefly here, but I'll probably do an in-depth video with a Beamer or a Gucci final drive, as those are far more tedious than this Honda drive. With the Big Red, basically Honda has a simple process. They require you to fit the ring gear into the case with the bearing and check the clearance between the ring gear and a stop pin. The spec is 0.1 to 0.15 mm. Once that's done, you start with the shims. The ring gear has two shims, one on each side, whereas the pinion has just one shim. You put it all together, paint some dye on your pinion wheels and get started. Rotating the pinion causes the ring to turn and leaves a very clear mark on the gear. Rotating the pinion causes the ring to turn and leaves a very clear mark on the gear. The ideal way this works is to have markings of the two gears meeting right in the center of the pinion gear. This ensures even distribution of loads and prevents premature wear and tear. Now, moving the gear around to make this happen is simpler than most of us imagine it to be. It's not black art, I promise. The markings can be too high up on the gear, called the face, or too low down, called the flank. If these markings are too high up, you want to move them lower. This essentially means moving the pinion gear closer to the ring gear or deeper into the drive housing. And there's only one way to do that, is to reduce the size of the pinion shim. The reason why I say this is a breeze with Honda is because they tell you for every 0.1 mm change of the shim thickness, the pattern moves about 1.5 to 2 mm. And shims are available in a thickness of 0.06 mm. There's also a second set of adjustments here. In case the markings are too far to either side of the pinion gear, known as the heel or the toe. This is corrected once again using the shims on either side of the ring gear, and is also called adjusting the backlash. It's the exact amount of free play the pinion gear will have if the ring gear is held in place. The magic number here is 0.08 to 0.18 mm. If you've got the backlash set right, the face and flank adjustment is just a piece of cake. The amazing thing about precise Honda engineering is the fact that even though this drive had never been serviced, when we put in new bearings, used the stock shims and checked for backlash and gear markings, it all just lined up. And all we had to do was pour some oil in and we were good to go. Honda machined O-ring recesses into every joint in the swing arm and the drivetrain. There's one that connects a swinger to the drivetrain, another two on each side of the drive shaft housing, and then this massive O-ring to seal off the rear brake, which is mounted behind the rear wheel. And to ensure that all of these seal parts didn't overheat, they machined vent lines into each of these units.